Good afternoon. I'd like to thank everyone for coming, and I also would like to recognize some of our special guests. So from UA 400s, we have plumbers and pipe fitters Travis Martin. From IAMAW, we have Wade Borkland. From the Boilermakers, we have Junior Borwin, Matt Biles, Sean Coughlin, John Christensen, Marv Elkins. From IBEW, we have Jesse Jacks and Andy Pagel. And from the Carpenters, we have Matt Jacobson. And from Fincantieri Marine Group, we have CEO Marco Galbati. Today, it's my honor and pleasure to announce our first speaker, which is Senator Baldwin. Throughout her time in the Senate, Senator Baldwin has worked to strengthen economic security for working families, invest in education and workforce readiness, build a strong made-in-Wisconsin economy, and advocate for the rights of workers and unions across Wisconsin. She's been a staunch supporter of the state's shipbuilding industry and committed to addressing the challenges facing our shipbuilding sector. Please join me in welcoming Senator Baldwin.
Thank you, Jan, as always, for that warm welcome. Thank you all for being here. It's great to be back at Fincantieri Ace Marine, and I'm really appreciative of your hosting us today. It's also great to be here alongside so many labor leaders, including the Steelworkers, the Alliance for American Manufacturing, and other labor leaders who are gathered here today. I appreciate your leadership on this important issue and your partnership as we work together to protect Wisconsin workers. Now, if you know me, you know that I always love to brag about how Wisconsin makes things. We make world-class cheese, award-winning beer, engines that power every type of machine, and yes, we make the ships that keep our country safe and move goods around the world. Shipbuilding and shipyards are essential not only to our economy, but also to our identity and the fabric of our state, not to mention that we're good at it. Okay, so I mentioned it. We're good at it. This is a common tale for many Midwestern states. The United States has long been a leader in this industry, and following World War II, the United States led the world in commercial shipbuilding. But today's story is starkly different. Over the last 2 decades, by cheating the system and employing unfair tactics, China has surged ahead and now leads the world in commercial shipbuilding, churning out over 1,000 vessels annually, while the U.S., gets this, produces fewer than 10. Fewer than 10 here. For years, China has gotten away with tilting the playing field, and it's American workers and our national security that are paying the price. When a shipyard goes out of business or the production of essential parts heads overseas, we lose good-paying jobs, union jobs, but we also lose the knowledge of these tradesmen who have found careers and planted roots in our communities. We cannot let China eat our lunch. That's why I've been so proud to work alongside the steelworkers and other workers across the country to say enough is enough and call on the Biden administration to take action. And last week, our calls were met. Our relentless efforts to call out China's campaign to dominate the global shipbuilding industry led the Biden administration to launch an investigation into the Chinese government's policies and practices that subsidize their shipbuilding industry at the expense of U.S. security and U.S. workers. This is the first step in standing up to China and helping protect America's shipbuilding industry and American workers. But I know that we have more work to do to reclaim our position as the global leader in commercial shipbuilding. And that's why I hope that the Biden administration will consider some of the remedies proposed by the steelworkers in their petition, including the creation of a fund to revitalize American shipbuilding. So again, thank you to the steelworkers and our friends in labor for taking on this fight to ensure a level playing field for American workers and businesses. And now, Jan, I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you. And now I'd like to have Denny Lauer from the United States Steelworkers to come up. Denny? Thank you.
Thank you, Jan. Last month, with the backing of Senator Bob Casey and our own Wisconsin Senator Tammy Baldwin, the United Steelworkers, the International Association of Machinists and Aerospace Workers, the International Brotherhood of Boilermakers, and the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, and the Maritime Trades Department of the AFL-CIO filed a petition with the USTR highlighting China's web of protectionism and predatory policies in the transportation, logistics, and shipbuilding sectors. Section 301 of the Trade Act of 1974, as amended, is designed to address unfair foreign practices affecting U.S. commerce. Section 301 may be used to respond to unjustifiable, unreasonable, or discriminatory foreign government practices that burden or restrict U.S. commerce. The Section 301 provision of the Trade Act provides a domestic procedure through which interested persons may petition the U.S. Trade Representative to investigate a foreign government act, policy, or practice and take appropriate action. This petition documents the long-term effort of the Chinese Communist Party, the CCP, to dominate these sectors. The CCP has been relentless in their efforts to use commercial shipbuilding to dominate the full spectrum of global trade, choking out all competitors. It's time for us to fight back. The U.S. was once a leader in this industry, but our shipbuilding industry collapsed. Our nation lost more than 70,000 shipbuilding jobs, 70,000 shipbuilding jobs, not to mention all the secondary jobs the industry supports. Furthermore, the People's Republic of China's policies have imposed grave economic consequences, and the growing imbalance in shipbuilding threatens U.S. national security. Last year, the U.S. produced fewer than 10 oceanic vessels, while China produced more than 1,000, as Senator Baldwin pointed out. China has surpassed the United States and now operates the world's largest Navy. What's more, the last 3 dry docks our Navy purchased were supplied by China, and our maritime security program has no U.S. ships in inventory. And the last ships that were bought are on order are all Chinese built. If we do not act quickly, we will soon be dependent on China, not only for the products their vessels bring into our ports, but also for the ships themselves. The more than 1,000-page case we filed is a broad indictment, but it also identifies the steps that can be taken to restore our capabilities, our productive capacity and jobs, and advance our economic and national security interests. Our members make products used across the logistics, transportation, and shipbuilding sectors. A single commercial ship can require approximately 13,000 tons of structural steel, 60,000 gallons of paint, 130 miles of electrical cable, and many other products tens of thousands USW members proudly produce. As we rebuild our merchant marine, we'll not only increase our nation's sea lift capability, but we'll also shore up critical supply chains our military and commercial shipbuilding industries share, and making us safer and more resilient. Last week, we were thrilled President Biden was in Pittsburgh at USW headquarters to announce that his administration is initiating an investigation of Chinese commercial shipbuilding in response to the Section 301 petition we filed. This president has done more than any other, not to just combat unfair trade, but to invest in growing our domestic industries so that they can be competitive. The petition provides an avenue for those two approaches to go hand in hand, enhancing both our economic and national security. We are grateful for the support of Senator Baldwin in this process and appreciate her willingness to always carry the message of working people to Congress. We look forward to continuing that work well into the future. Thank you.
sorry, go ahead. Yeah, thank you, Denny. And now, I'd like to introduce Meghan Hasse from the Alliance for American Manufacturing. Meghan? Welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Meghan Hasse, and I'm the Wisconsin Field Coordinator with the Alliance for American Manufacturing. We're a partnership between major U.S. manufacturing and the United Steelworkers. I want to open my remarks today by thanking Ace Marine and Fincantieri for hosting today's event. And it's always great to see you, Senator Tammy Baldwin, and my friend Denny with the Steelworkers. I'm from Green Bay. I live just 15 minutes down the road. And what's really special to me today is that my grandfather used to work in this very building all those years ago when it was Northwest Engineering. He calls it the best job he ever had. My family has a proud tradition in Wisconsin manufacturing, and that's why I'm honored to be here today to talk with you about an important effort begun by union workers. The U.S. Trade Representative's decision to open a probe into an anti-competitive trade practices by the Chinese shipbuilding industry is the right thing to do. This Section 301 investigation stems from a petition filed by the Steelworkers and their allies and is a response to China's unfair domination of the global shipbuilding sector. And Senator Baldwin has led the charge on this from day one. Because of her work in the Senate, Wisconsinites have had better opportunities. Those that work with our hands in Wisconsin have had better opportunities. We have better trade laws, better Buy America laws, and stronger domestic industries. And a stronger shipbuilding industry is why we're here today. The truth is, America needs more shops like Ace Marine. We used to have them, but other countries decided to invest in their own shipbuilding industries at the very same time our country decided not to. And just like in many other industries, commercial shipbuilding is now largely consolidated outside of the U.S., and China is taking huge steps each year to gain control of global production. The results here, played out for decades, has been very predictable. In 1975, U.S. shipbuilders had orders for more than 70 commercial ships annually. Today, that number of commercial shipyards has fallen from 28 down to 7, and as the senator had said, they produce less than 10 vessels, ocean-going vessels per year. China, by comparison, produces over 1,000 and has orders that account for 50% of global production. That is not because of comparative advantage. It's because China sees shipbuilding dominance as strategically important and has committed massive support to reach that objective. By producing far more than the Chinese market needs and exporting the rest, its state-backed shipbuilders command this global industry, making the U.S. dangerously reliant in turn. This investigation is going to find the Chinese government built its shipbuilding juggernaut with all kinds of unfair trade practices, from state-directed industrial espionage to building up state-owned companies with the goal of wiping out international competition. And so far it's worked because no one cared to put up a fight. Well, I'll tell you what, we're going to fight right now. China's cheating has put up serious barriers towards revitalizing our own shipbuilding industry. And this investigation is the first step to tear down those barriers. But this won't be easy. In just the first half of 2023, Chinese shipyards received over 72% of the world's orders for ships. Shipbuilding's decline here, meanwhile, contributed to deindustrialization. Many American industrial supply chains now stretch across oceans to where most ships are built. And this is very important. Think about all the economic activity this sector generates that we're seeding. As Denny mentioned when he talked about the cable, the wires, the paint, and the structural steel, all these components that go into these big ocean-going vessels is huge. With American shipbuilding revitalized, all that can and should be made right here in America by American workers and supplied by American companies. We can't forget the supply chain crisis that followed the pandemic, which taught us the value of industrial resiliency. We learned that depending on just-in-time production and commerce risks both, not to mention our national security. Shipbuilding is uniquely important to national security. It's how you build and maintain a Navy. And if we aren't fighting to get it back, we'll have effectively outsourced a national security concern too. So I want to thank the Biden administration for getting this investigation started, the steelworkers, the machinists, the boilermakers, the electrical workers, and the maritime trades for all of your leadership here. This is very, very important. And also, many thanks to Senator Baldwin for standing with American factory workers who are ready to step into the void here, who are ready to make commercial ships again. And we're going to make them right here in the United States. Thank you.
Thank you, Megan. And now I'd like to invite Senator Baldwin up for just a brief Q&A. Thank you.
Does anyone have any questions? Yeah, I can give you an overview of the things that I've heard about since I've been looking at these issues. But I would also invite Megan, if you want to supplement anything I say, to do so. But we see a lot of anti-competitive practices. First of all, while we trade with China, they are not a capitalist economy, sort of like we are here. And so some of the unfair practices include state subsidies. So if you set up your factory there, they can do anything from owning the enterprise, so it's a government-owned enterprise by the Chinese Communist Party, or doing things like writing off the energy costs, something that would never happen here in the United States. There are also a very troubling practice in parts of China of forced labor and child labor. And obviously, those are input costs that would be an unfair advantage. And so those are examples. I'm sure I'm missing others. Is there anything you want to add to that? Come on up. I told you I wasn't going to put you on the spot. I just want to make sure that I'm not missing any.
Yeah, I think one of the things is that, China has a different sort of economy than us, as the senator said, and because they're a non-market economy, they're not always playing by the same rules as us. You had mentioned child labor. Environmental rules and regulations are pretty much non-existent there. So that puts any manufacturing overseas in China a little bit at a more of a competitive disadvantage for us when we're trying to compete. We have regulations here, which is a good thing, but also
You're reminding me, we can take this one
safety,
together.
yeah.
If you're a country that doesn't have a minimum wage, doesn't have any worker safety laws, again, all of those can undermine. It's not a level playing field. And we need to have those laws and regulations in place. We want to encourage other countries to do so, to have a level playing field, but they cheat in those many ways. Other questions? Go ahead. Oh. Yeah, so I can tell you a little bit about the timeline. And so once the petition was filed, the U.S. Trade Representative, Ambassador Tai, had, I think it was 45 days to make a determination based on the petition of whether to investigate. I spoke with Ambassador Tai last week when she indicated, I think I got 12 hours up on everyone else that they were going to announce the next day that an investigation would be conducted. They have up to 12 months. They don't need to take the full 12 months. But it's collecting the data about whether there are unfair practices like the ones we just described. So the question is, what do they do to, gain an advantage and be able to undercut U.S. shipbuilders? If they gather enough information and evidence that indeed they're cheating, there are a number of tools that the U.S. Trade Representative has. And in this case, you heard a bit from Denny about that there's a range of ways in which the U.S. Trade Representative could act to level the playing field for U.S. workers in U.S. shipbuilding operations. Yeah, I think, first of all, this is obviously a well-timed petition because it was embraced by the U.S. Trade Representative and the Biden administration, and they're going to go forward, recognizing, I think, as we have, and you heard commentary already on this coming out of the pandemic when we had huge issues with the supply chain. We know that if we don't make it here, if we don't have a lot of the supply chain here, it can be very serious to our national security. And I know we're talking about commercial vessels, not naval vessels, but it's the same expertise, the same know-how, it's the same workforce. And we can't afford to lose completely such an important and valuable part of the industry. And so this is fighting back, and it's a great time to be fighting back. Thank you.
This concludes our event. Thank you for coming.